Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So today I'm going to be talking about a brand new potential format that was just conceptualized seemingly in the last 24 hours. This is a brand new format potentially that I think could actually have some legs. Let's get into the details about kind of why it's a potential format and why. Let's just get into the backstory really quick. So Rush is the name of this brand new format. Again, not sure if that's a finalized name or not. My apologies. I'm just learning about it probably as quickly as you are at this point. And actually, let me mention as well, this, I don't believe I saw that they have an actual logo for this format yet. This is just one that I threw together for this episode because I thought it looked cool. So there you go. So Rush, this format was conceptualized, it seems to be by Sergeant Cookie on Reddit. I hope I'm giving credit where credit is due properly. My apologies if I'm misspeaking. So yeah, there was a Reddit post from Sergeant Cookie, looks like about 18 hours ago from right now. The Rush format, 10 life, 30 cards, unique draws. So yeah, that definitely caught my eye. Definitely a unique concept for a new format. Essentially, if I'm getting the story correctly, Mark Rosewater Morrow had an article yesterday about odds and ends, Commander Legends, and basically made an offhand remark about a theoretical Rush format where you start off with 10 life and potentially what colors would be better in that format versus, like a Commander format, which is, obviously different. Basically, Sergeant Cookie kind of took this, though, and gave it life. Sergeant Cookie says, so now I present you the Rush format, a 30-card twosome format, 10 life, 5 cards in hand, and oh yeah, and a fun twist, drawing a new hand every turn in addition to Legacy ban list. Rush also has its own dedicated ban list. But yeah, basically, this is going to be a very unique format, and I'm actually going to go through the rules here. Again, this is a format that came up in the last 24 hours, it seems to be, so obviously some of those rules are probably bound to change, but yeah, the initial concept, I think, actually has some legs, and seems like a very unique format, something that I'm looking, forward to seeing where it goes, potentially. And of course, in the description below, I'll have the link to this Reddit post, I'll have the link to the rules, and I'll have a link to the Discord. Yeah, Rush has its own Discord now. Again, a big thanks to Sergeant Cookie for, posting this, sharing it with everyone. Definitely a really unique format. Let's jump into those rules, though. So let's start off with the overview. Rush is a constructed format designed for extremely fast play. Decks are small, life totals are low, games are decided fast. Oh, and there's no keeping cards from round to round. One thing to note is that a Rush deck is small, consisting of exactly 30 cards. This means that one could, in theory, make a Rush deck out of anything. You can make it out of your draft chaff and a few extra basics lands between rounds. You could play a game of Rush out of your sideboard cards after you've lost 2-0, and there's no more games for the day. You could split your standard deck in two right down the middle and play a Rush mirror match. Deck construction rules. So, rule number 1. A Rush deck must contain exactly 30 cards. If you're playing with a companion, that counts as one of the 30. So that's something that's different than Commander, obviously. Commander now has that 101. The companion in Rush would have to be part of the 30. This means that a Rush deck could contain 29 cards and a companion. So it's still a separate companion. It's just off to the side. But yeah, your deck is going to have 29 cards then instead of the 30. Rule number 2. With the exception of basic lands, your deck can contain no more than 2 copies of any individual card. Some cards, like Relentless Rats, may have rules text that overrides this restriction. So yeah, essentially, Commander is a singleton format. This is a, whatever the word for 2-card format is. But yeah, so you can have 2 copies of any card, no more. But you can have less, obviously, if you want. Again, that's different than Commander. Commander is a 1-card format. So this is going to be a 2-card format, it seems. But again, Relentless Rats, cards like that say you may have as many copies of this or basic lands. Those are fine. If playing Rush as a dedicated format, all cards legal in Legacy format are legal in Rush. Rush additionally has its own ban list, though this only matters if playing as a dedicated game of Rush. By consent of both players, the ban list can be waived, but this is only recommended if you are basing your Rush deck on a pre-existing deck and have no opportunity to replace the banned cards. The ban list is located at the bottom of this document. Kind of a similar, Rule 0-ish kind of thing, where basically, this is the kind of recommended ban list. If you're just taking one of your decks in between rounds of games and splitting it in half, Obviously, you might have a card that overlaps in that ban list, and that's it's not trying to restrict necessarily, the competitiveness of those kind of games, but if Rush becomes its own dedicated format, then obviously there needs to be a consistent ban list there too. Play rules. So, rule number 4, players begin the game with 10 life. So yeah, this is definitely a different kind of format from Commander, but also from Standard. Formats like Standard, the typical kind of amount of life that you have, in Standard, Legacy, Vintage, in all those formats is going to be 20. This is half that. And then again, for a game like Commander, this is 1/4 of that. So this is definitely going to be a lot quicker of a game with only 10 life per player. Rule number 5, the maximum hand size of a game of Rush is only 5 cards, not 7. So that's another kind of change where, you're going to be starting the game off and your max hand size is 5 cards total. So usually it's 7. Obviously, with a smaller deck, 30 cards, that's going to be 1/6 of your deck, essentially, versus the standard 7. Rule number 6, games of Rush have slightly different rules for drawing cards. And this is kind of the probably main difference that we're seeing from other types of formats. And let's really get into this really quick. After drawing their initial hand of cards, 5, each player may choose to mulligan. The player who is first may choose to mulligan a maximum of 2 times, while the player who is going second may only choose to mulligan once. So the difference here is essentially, if you're going first, you're not getting that extra draw, so you can choose to mulligan twice. The player who's going second is getting an extra draw, or they're playing on the draw, so you basically get only 1 mulligan. Unlike the normal mulligan rules, players do not put any cards in the bottom of their library after drawing new ones, regardless of whether they take 1 or 2 mulligans. So if I'm understanding this correctly, let me just, I'm new to these rules as well. I believe that if you're mulling, you lose those cards potentially. Again, clarify in the comments below if you know differently. If playing a multiplayer Rush game, all players may mulligan only once. So this is kind of showing that, yes, there is kind of the potential for a multiplayer aspect to this game. It's not just going to be one-on-one all the time. You can have more than 2 players. And then, yeah, if that is the case, you're only mulliganing once. And that's probably more fair where, basically you're not kind of really hampering one player, only allowing them to mulligan a certain number of times. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player puts all the cards in their hand on the bottom of their library in a random order. Then they draw 5 cards or a number of cards equal to their maximum hand size, whichever is smaller. So, yeah, this is really different from any other format, really. It's, kind of like a Teferi's puzzle box-ish, where, basically, okay, get rid of your hand and go back up to 5 or whatever, your maximum hand size might be, whichever one's smaller. And then, yeah, you're basically drawing an entirely new hand every single turn. So that really throws in a lot of variance to this kind of a game where, if you don't play it in your hand, it's gone. You can't, plan ahead and say, okay, I've got these things in my hand. I want to do this in this turn, this and that turn. If you don't play it that turn, that card is gone. It's on the bottom of your library, and it's a random order too. So you can't even do any kind of, bottom of the grave or bottom of the library shenanigans or whatnot. Certain cards can. Anyways, on the first draw step of the player who's going second, or on any player's first draw step if playing multiplayer, that player may choose to skip that draw step instead play with their initial hand of cards. This is kind of like basically you're not kind of punished for going after the first player. You can choose to keep that opening hand, or you can choose to ditch it as well, it seems to be. The first 5 cards each player draws each turn are all considered to be the first card they have drawn this turn for the purposes of such effects. This, I think, is an important kind of distinction, because there are obviously cards that are, basically based on the number of cards that you drew this turn, you get this benefit. And just, every single turn getting an extra 5 cards to kind of trigger that would be very kind of unfair. So essentially, this is only saying you only get 1 of those instead. It's basically you're drawing 1 chunk of cards, 1 card total, kind of. Anyways, makes sense. For the purposes of the miracle ability, only the first actual card you draw each turn counts for determining if that ability is triggered, not if it is one of the first 5. That's important as well. I could see Miracles being a very problematic deck in this kind of a format. If you were to allow, any card out of your top 5, if it's in that draw, it's a Miracle. Yeah, and then you basically, get free value, not free value, a very heavily discounted value for cheap. So it has to be the top card, essentially, to get that kind of Miracle, less than cost effect. If a player's deck includes a companion, that player may draw 1 less card each turn than allowed for as long as that companion is outside the game. When that player puts their companion into their hand, they return to drawing 5 cards a turn rather than 4. So just another kind of companion kind of rule that kind of makes companion work in this kind of a format. Abilities which bring other cards you own from outside the game into the game, such as Living Wish, Spawn Sire, Ulamog, Karn the Great Creator, do not function in Rush. I have kind of talked about in Commander. Commander, this doesn't work as well. But in this format, it definitely makes sense to not allow, in my opinion, cards from outside the game because of how small of a card pool you are playing with. Again, only 30 cards. If you put a bunch of wish cards in there, you're going to be able to make your deck a lot more consistent and get those cards from outside the game into your deck and then kind of just use those as, your win condition and whatnot. When it comes to the Rush ban list, any card on the Legacy ban list is banned in Rush, so I believe that actually includes Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault. So those of you in Commander that don't want to play those cards, look, there's a format that has those cards already banned for you. And additionally, the following cards are also banned in Rush. So again, this is in addition to the actual Legacy ban list. So the Legacy ban list, I should have looked up the exact number. I think it's around 50 or so cards or whatnot. And I think there's an additional 20 or so. So actually, with this kind of a format, it looks like, again, I could be misspeaking here because of the Legacy ban list. 100 or so less cards are actually banned in this format. So it is similar to Commander in that where there's not a huge ban list and you've got a lot of options of what to play with. Let's talk about the cards that are actually banned in Rush that are banned outside of Legacy. I've got some Moxes with Chrome Mox, Mox Opal, Mox Amber, so some fast mana cards. That makes sense for a ban for this kind of format. Again, with such a small card pool, you're bound to get, if you stack your deck full of these, you're bound to get way ahead of your opponents really quickly with a kind of a deck that's just using some fast mana cards. Mox Diamond, Lotus Petal, Lotus Bloom. So another Mox, some Lotus cards again. Quick mana cards that are designed to get you way ahead of your opponents really quickly. And yeah, in a game that's only at 10 life, you could probably finish your opponent off turn one pretty consistently with a deck that just runs a bunch of fast mana cards and a bunch of other ways to take your opponent down. Lion's Eye Diamond, Ancient Tomb, Genstone Caverns. So again, Lion's Eye Diamond, another one of those kind of Mox, actually more like a Black Lotus kind of effect. Ancient Tomb, Gemstone Cavern, some lands that essentially are very quick mana lands. And then some other quick mana spells as well. They can Elvish Spirit Guide, a Simian Spirit Guide, which you basically just exile from your hand, you get a free mana. Chancellor of the Tangle, which can give you a free mana essentially if it's in your opening hand. So again, free mana turn one, not necessarily what this format is about. And then free spells turn one as well, like a Once Upon a Time, which basically just, if it's the first play you cast, you get to cast it for free. You get a creature or land from among the top 5 cards in your hand. Providence, which is basically, this format does say we're starting at 20 life, but if I've got this in my opening hand, I'm at 26. So it's just like a gain 6 life for free spell. Yeah, essentially. Leyline of Abundance. Actually, I believe this is the only Leyline that was actually banned so far from Rush, but this is one that basically makes it so whenever you tap a creature for mana, you get initial green. So Leylines are ones that you get to play for free if it's in your opening hand. And essentially saying, okay, now your Land of War Elves taps for 2, and you're really off to the races with this card in play on turn 1. Serum Powder is another one of those, if you've got it in your opening hand, you can mulligan extra time, and it makes sense that this one's banned as well. Kind of any of those, if this is in your opening hand, really have to come in question in a format where, you have a 1 in 6 chance of a card being in your opening hand, essentially. Some other fast mana cards, like a Dark Ritual. I believe Dark Ritual is actually the only ritual that's banned so far. Fires of Invention is kind of a mana cheat card. Panoptic Mirror as well. Basically allowing you to kind of imprint something on it and then just cast it over and over again. Actually banned in Commander as well for things like Armageddon, just, blowing up lands every single turn, so on and so forth. Isochron Scepter, a combo card, as well as one that could just work really well with, say like a Lightning Bolt. If you just get that on that in this kind of a format, you're going to be able to just keep dealing damage every single turn. It's a very, very powerful card, and I'm sure it's just banned, for that purpose as well as just, it's a very good combo card. Hidetsuku's Second Right. This is a really interesting one. If target player is exactly 10 life, it deals 10 damage to that player. Yep, this format is all about having 10 life, so if that player hasn't gained any life and you haven't damaged them, this is just a 4 mana kill player spell. Firestorm, choose and discard X cards. Firestorm deals X damage to each of up to X target creatures and or players. Yep, that makes sense as to why this one's also banned as well. You don't really care about discarding those cards in this kind of a format because you're going to be getting a new 5 cards every single turn. Again, this card is incredibly effective with that, so that makes sense that this one's banned. And then some mill cards are banned as well, preemptively. Sands of Delirium, pay X, tap it, and mill someone for X. Startle Wake, mill someone for 13, which is essentially half of someone's deck. Persistent Petitioners, which, that's the, Relentless Rats version of a mill card, essentially. So this one is just, you just play a deck with all Persistent Petitioners, and you just mill someone for 12 every single time you tap 4 of them, or 4 advisors, I should say. So that also makes sense as to why that might be banned. So the ban list, again, is pretty small. Again, obviously, you add in the Legacy ban list as well on top of that. So, again, my apologies if I misspoke on how big the Legacy ban list is. I don't believe it's all that big. But again, a very small ban list. That's one comparison to Commander right there, which I really enjoy that Commander has, a very small ban list. It lets you play with your cards essentially, which is really nice. The variability to this format as well is very intriguing. Again, you can have two, copies of a card in your deck, so that does cut down kind of on the consistency factor, kind of like in Commander where you have Singleton, but also kind of that, you're drawing a new hand every single turn, and if you don't play the, cards in your hand, you're losing them. So, yeah, that's a really interesting part as well. It's definitely a format that's going to be a lot quicker than Commander as well. So, things like Lightning Bolt are going to be very good in that kind of a format. Isamaru, Hound of Kanda, things that might not be as powerful in Commander because Commander is more of a, battleship cruiser kind of format where, you're building things over turn and turn and turn. And then maybe, you build up your board and then finally you kind of win, turn 8, 9, 10, whatever it is. This is going to be kind of different. This is going to be more on the aggro side where, you're trying to do things quickly. Obviously, there's other different strategies that can work, but it's definitely kind of a, it turns the concept of Commander on its head where it's saying, Commander is about, taking, having, an hour and a half, 2-hour game, potentially hour, whatever, it depends on whatever it becomes, into a, hey, we can play a quick, 5-minute game or so, maybe even quicker depending on the decks. So different cards are going to be more powerful in this format, obviously, than in Commander. But yeah, this is just I think this is an interesting take. I think I've been looking for something to do in between games. I think all Commander players really are. You're playing again, potentially a 2-hour game of Commander, hour and a half, or whatever it is. And, you get knocked out, maybe another player gets knocked out early, and the other two players are just playing on their own for another 30, 40 minutes. You can get a couple games of Rush in really quick in between that. Yeah, I'm actually not sure if I've actually mentioned this on an episode before, but I do actually have a Pauper deck that I built quite a long time ago, before I had a channel. And basically, yeah, just for something to do in between games, if, me and another player get knocked out, we both have Pauper decks we can play. So kind of similar thing to Rush where, at the very least, I think this could be a good kind of in-between Commander games type of format. And I think it's got legs on its own, though. I think that this kind of a format, again, things that make Commander great are kind of that variability, kind of the uniqueness of kind of each game, kind of that excitement. But this does kind of, take that and play it in a different way. Again, it adds to, instead of, one card, it's 2. So we'll see if that stays or if that changes or whatnot. And then, 10 life, that makes it for a very quick experience where, you might not have a good hand one game or after you mull even, and then, the next game, you go into the next game. That's okay. You may have a better hand that game and then, you can try different things. And it just seems like a really kind of interesting format. And I'm really looking forward to kind of where it potentially goes. So yeah, again, another big thanks to Sergeant Cookie. I'm hoping I'm giving credit where credit is due. My apologies if I am not. That is just where I found the Reddit post for this one again. And again, in the description below, I'm going to be posting a link to this Reddit post. I'll be posting the link to the rule set, and I'll be posting a link to the Rush Discord. So again, Rush, a very exciting new potential format. Again, it's been around for less than 24 hours, so we'll see if this goes anywhere. I'm excited to see where it does, though. But yeah, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the Rush format? What kind of cards do you think would be really good in this format? What kind of a deck would you want to brew in this format? So yeah, let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks again, and have a good one.